Holy cow! Hello, everybody. You may have just been watching the Play Hearthstone stream, but now you're here. That was a really awesome 4 days of tournament, wasn't it? In my special Bahamas clothes. In the background here. Wow, my hair, I should have checked that. These crazy microphones. Oh my goodness. So, got a good one for you today. Gonna do a stream of reviewing 20 cards from the Ungoro expansion. We're gonna go through the class cards first in the usual order, alphabetically, and then we're going to go into the neutrals. Oh, hey there.
Mind if I join you, Trump?
Hey there, lead designer Mike Donais.
Hey, everybody.
We're just about to talk about 20 of the newest cards from Ungoro. You might know a thing or two about them.
Yeah, I'm curious what you have to say about them. This is going to be great.
Yeah. Don't worry. The good news is these cards are mostly good.
Yeah,
So I won't try to hurt your feelings too much.
that's fine. We don't make every card good. We make some cards medium and some cards situational and some cards not quite as good.
Let's see. I wonder if you can also use this mic. Ouch.
All right, so this card, so Living Mana. When I started working on Magic the Gathering, I heard a story about a card in a set called Legends. Legends is like the 4th Magic the Gathering expansion. Came out in like 94. And the card was called Living Lands. And the design that they got, the design team delivered this design. All lands instantly start fighting. That was the card text that the design team had written for it. And eventually people were like playtesting and iterating on it. And like, this doesn't mean anything. All lands instantly start fighting. That's crazy. They eventually changed that card to all lands become 1/1 minions. And it was called Living Lands. It was shipped in Legends. And I thought that was such a ridiculous story that I wrote the same exact text box in the design file for this card. All lands instantly start fighting. And just wanted to see what people would do. That eventually turned into this design, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting to play, but a little bit more reasonable than what I wrote.
All right, wow. Well, that's some excellent design right there. I love the art that goes with it. You can see the mana crystals actually becoming guys and then attacking. It's a 5-mana 10/10. What's not to like about it? You thought Doppelgangster was good, getting 3 2/2s? Well, now you get 5 2/2s, and you can actually get up to 7 2/2s if you have an empty board, and then you cast it at 7+ mana. If you cast it at, say, 10 mana and you have 0 empty spaces, what happens?
Actually, if you have no spaces, it doesn't do anything.
I said if you have all empty spaces, rather.
If you have 7 empty spaces, you get 7. You're left with 3 mana crystals, and you get 7 of these little 2/2 minions. It just gives you 1 for each space you have available, assuming you have enough mana crystals. And with Innervate, it does not count those temporary mana crystals. So if you Innervate this out on turn 1, you just get 1 2/2.
That's a bad deal. I
Yes.
recommend you don't Innervate Living Mana.
That sounds like good value.
Now, where we do recommend to use it is probably an aggressive Druid deck. You lay out some threats early, maybe in a Beast Druid, maybe in just a general token Druid with the Mark of the Lotus, perhaps, or Power of the Wild. With eggs, perhaps. Maybe it makes a wild deck. Maybe it makes the standard egg deck good enough. And then you just try to finish them off with the 5-mana card, which puts out 10/10 worth of stats. That is a lot of stats for 5 mana. Comes with a serious drawback of losing your mana for a bit, but that's a big burst of power. And then you Savage Roar them, perhaps with an Innervate.
Yeah, it seems great with Savage Roar.
It's the new force of nature.
Power of the Wild, too. Cards like that.
Next up, we've got the new Mage secret of Mana Bind. When your opponent casts a spell, add a copy to your hand, costs 0. So some people have actually theorized about how you can do Cabal Lackey turn 1, steal your opponent's quest with it, even better than Counterspell. But that might be a little tough to do because the quests seem really specific, like the Rogue quest, which we're going to talk about soon. That would be a bad quest to steal.
Yeah, quests are very specific. If you were to say have any quest you wanted in your opening hand, it would probably all be a bad idea because if your deck isn't specifically built to complete quests, You just can't do it.
Where this card can get value is it can basically turn itself into a huge mana savings if you cast it very cleverly right before your opponent's about to play a really good card. Spells that are used commonly right now include Nourish, they include Swipe. I'm thinking Druid since we just did Druid. The dream is to get like the Reno Mage's Pyroblast maybe. You just get a 10 mana savings there.
Sure, or a 10 mana Kazakus potion would be the dream.
That's pretty good. Get the Flame Strike, get the Blizzard, you get the good stuff. Ultimately, maybe you wanted to stop the opponent from casting their spell instead, though. In what instances is this card better than, say, Counterspell?
I think you would have to have something in your deck that specifically wanted very cheap spells, like 0 mana spells, or something like that. I don't think you would play this over Counterspell in a deck that doesn't have a specific plan to use it. So I would say play Counterspell instead of this. If you can Counterspell your opponent's quest on turn 1, that's a much better idea.
I see. If only we had a card that actually cared about reducing your spells to such a small amount of mana. I mean, this also lets you get that boost, so it's like banking your mana. You get to cast several mana worth of stuff on a single turn.
Right, exactly. Yeah, unless you have some reason like that, Counterspell's usually a better idea.
Yeah, and just by default, you have the swing turns right now. Kazakus potions are actually that powerful because they pack a lot of value into a mana thing. Like you have a board clear and you summon an 8/8. So that's an example of how banking a lot of mana into a condensed spell is really good. So now maybe if you capture an opponent's Flame Strike, you can both Flame Strike the board and lay down a big card. For now, this card sure seems not that useful unless you have a very specific plan with it. This is an exciting new quest. We actually chatted about how you're a little bit fearful of this quest.
Yeah, it pushes a very aggressive deck, and it does so in Hunter, which is a really aggressive class, and they have some great finishers, and this gives them some more finishers. So the only thing that isn't aggressive about this particular deck is their turn 1. Their turn 1 is often just play the quest and be done, which slows them down quite a bit, actually.
Congratulations, Hunters. You get perhaps something new to play with. You've got the quest to play 7/1 cost minions. You can see how stealing a quest like this would be pretty bad, almost impossible to complete if you were to do it with a mage. It's minions, so tracking doesn't count, although tracking might be a possible thing to consider just to dig into 1-cost minions, or when you get the reward of... Oh, and that's just an example of a card that's good with the Marsh Queen. Here's your Queen Carnassa, 5 mana 8/8. Battlecry, shuffle 15 Raptors in your deck. When this card was first revealed on the stream, Twitch chat was going like, Resident Sleeper, Raptors, man, how boring. But then you saw how good the Raptors were, and then everyone was, oh my goodness, that's a 1 mana 3/2 Battlecry draw a card.
That looks pretty good, yeah.
You get 15 of those in your deck, so in theory, you could go turn 5 Queen Carnassa, turn 6 Carnassa's Brood 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. 2 times 6 is 12, so 18, 12 worth of stats on turn 6.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like a big problem.
It sounds like you didn't test this card enough. How is this balanced?
I did test it quite a bit, and
All
it
right,
was very good.
We're safe.
We definitely pushed a lot of the quests because we wanted them to be like, hey, you're paying a lot. You're giving up your first turn. You're giving up a card in your starting hand. And in addition to that, you're also building your deck around this. It's so many different things that you give up. The rewards have to be insane to be worth it. And also very exciting. And I think that this quest definitely does that.
Definitely opens up a lot of excitement, and my personal love about this card is there's so many different ways to build the deck. You're talking about how some of the designers were thinking about putting a 29 1-cost minion deck. With that setup, if you're going second, I was thinking about this while I was dreaming about how to play this card. You'll always get to play Queen Carnassa on exactly turn 5, because you start off with 4 cards in your hand. One of which is the quest. You draw a 5th card. It's always a 1-cost minion if all of them are minions. So you play your quest. You draw another 1-cost minion on turn 2. You play 2 of them. You draw 1 on turn 3. You play 3 of them. You draw 1 on turn 4. You play 2 of them. Bam, that's 7.
Yeah. So going second, you finish it on 4, and then on 5 you play Queen Carnassa. And then after that, you've got all these crazy Raptors.
And then you pray that you top deck the Raptors. Otherwise, you're going to just draw 1 cost, which is perhaps the balancing thing of Queen Carnassa. You don't always draw the Raptor. You can always just run out of fuel. And remember, this is play 7 1-cost minions, which means your Alley Cat does not count as 2. since that would be a summon. Another excellent one-cost minion is to bring up an old card, the Firefly, which actually counts as 2 one-cost minions. You can summon this twice. 1 mana Firefly, get the 1/2 elemental, which costs 1. Cast it again, counts twice for the spell. That's value.
So if you're going first and you get a Firefly, you can still complete it at the same speed as if you went second.
Yeah, that's incredible. You can do a lot of extremes. You can build a 29 card one-cost minion. I don't recommend it personally. You can build a mix of like a mid-range deck which runs maybe 10 to 15 one-cost minions and perhaps utilizes this awesome next card, Tol'vir Warden. When this first came out, the Hunter Quest had not been revealed yet, but now that it has been, Tol'vir Warden certainly looks a lot better. I thought it looked pretty good as is. It's basically a 5-mana 3/5 draw 2. That's like Ancient of Lore, draw 2 except 2 cost less for 2 attack. That's a good deal. And Ancient of Lore was rotated out. It's very similar to Small Time Recruits, which is draw 3 1 cost, but this costs 2 more and you get 3/5 extra of stats, so it's much faster. It's a good value card, and it seems like it's a natural fit for this Hunter Quest.
Yeah, this card is cool. Even if you draw it after you've completed the quest, you play it and you get some of those 3/2s that draw a card.
Oh, yeah.
So either whether you draw it before or after, it's got great value.
I mean, anytime you draw a 3/2 Raptor, you're having a good time. But this one with 2 3/2 Raptor is just adding up all the stats. It's 7 mana for 9.
And draw 2.
And draw 2. Well, draw 1, basically, since you're bundling them together.
Okay.
That's pretty good. 7 mana, 9/9. That reminds me. Well, we've already seen the card, King Dread, but that one's a pretty good mid-range hunter card, potentially also. And newest card to be revealed, the Crackling Razormaw, actually just revealed here on the last day of the Bahamas. So Adapt I've always thought of as not worth quite 1 mana, but it's kind of like, in my personal opinion, it's like a rounding thing. Maybe worth 0.5 mana. So you've got your 2 mana 3/2. If you've got a bonus here, you've got a Donais thinking, is that right? Did we price it around there? And that sounds about right. 2 mana 3/2, you get the Adaptive Friendly Beast. 2 mana 3/2 stat line pretty good. You get the bonus to hit a beast with a little bit of extra stuff. And furthermore, it's adapting something already on the board, so that means part of the stats gets charged. So if you get something simple like an adaptation of +1/+1, then it's like a 1 mana discount Shadowstone Cleric. If you get the Divine Shield one, it's like a +1 attack value on the Paladin card.
Yeah, the guy that gives Divine Shield.
Yeah, the card that gives Divine Shield.
Yeah, this guy is usually going to be played on a 1-cost minion that you played on turn 1, and certain adapts are better on those 1-cost minions, right? Like Poisonous is really good on the 1-cost minion, and
That's
+3 attack is pretty good on the 1-cost minion. So you're looking for those when you play this.
Yeah, and sometimes if you're up against a really low deck, you can just give that +3 health. And really good on a 1 minion is the summon 2 1/1 things. Plants, rather.
Right, yeah, that's great. Great point.
And if you're playing the turn 1 Alley Cat, it's pretty hard for the opponent to remove both of them on the same turn, unless they're playing good old Nazas First Mate. Hey, Kibler. Have you seen this card yet, Kibler? It's pretty sweet.
Minutes ago.
I think a card like this might even make it into that 1-cost deck. There haven't been that many great 2-drops for a Hunter. Kindly Grandmother comes to mind. I think that one might do a mainstay. But in terms of the quest, maybe if you're playing all these 1-cost cards, of which a decent amount are beasts, I believe, including the Fiery Bat and the Alley Cat. Any others that you can think of right now?
Yeah, 2 that we haven't revealed yet.
2?
Yeah.
2 1-cost beasts.
2 good 1-cost beasts.
Oh my goodness, you heard it here first. 2 1-cost beasts. Neutral Hunter. Oh man, welcome back to the pack, Rexar. You're really pushing this 1-cost minion thing.
And the 2/1 that freezes is also pretty good. The 2/1 elemental that freezes when you play it.
Yeah, we will get to that card, but as a bit of a heads up, I've been thinking about how to play that 1-mana 2/1. It certainly doesn't seem like something you would play on curve usually. You want to play it a bit later. It's kind of like a heal, I almost compared it, but it's like better because you stop the opponent from hitting you in the face, but not just that, you stop them from hitting a minion. It's really hard to evaluate.
Yeah, I actually saw Frost Elemental get played in a tournament recently. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember it. I actually was a fairly fast adopter of that deck. I was very surprised to find it in Reno Lock, and I tried it at a good amount. It just turns out to be a pretty decent heal. It's flexible, and then I decided to cut it for a big game hunter, and then I decided to cut that for something else that was generally good, but it had its time in the glory.
I think the best use I saw of it was when the guy played Corruption and then froze their opponent's minion, and we have that as another option for this 1-drop, the 1-mana 2/1 that freezes.
You heard it here first. This Crackling Razormaw may be even better than we thought, especially if they're 2 good 1-mana hunter cards that are beasts. Here we've got the Rogue Quest. Tough quest to do. Play 4 minions with the same name. And that's play, not summon. So if you were in Wild, you couldn't do Patches Gang Up and then just do that for an easily 4 5/5s. That would be ridiculous. So you've got to play 4. That means you have to return minions into your hand with cards like Shadow Step and the Ferryman
The Brewmaster.
and the Brewmasters, or with other cards that have been revealed and possibly with other cards that haven't been revealed yet. I believe you were quoted, or someone was quoted, saying you can't actually even evaluate this card yet because there's something coming up.
Actually, that's a slight misquote of what I said. What I said was you can't evaluate this card yet until you play it and try building decks for it. Not because there's necessarily any cards coming up for it.
Okay.
So yeah, until you can actually play it, because it's really hard to process. Like, the reward is really weird, the conditions are really weird.
Yeah, let's take a look at the reward. The reward is for the rest of the game, your minions are 5/5s, and that's really good for very cheap minions such as Swashbuckler, such as Patches, such as Southsea Deckhand, notably.
Yeah, even just boars.
Boars, Stone Tusk Boar.
Yeah, Stone Tusk boars, like 5/5 charge for 1, especially if you're playing like Brewmasters and Shadow Steps. They get better than they look.
Yeah. The way to enable this is, well, I mean, here's the dream. I've seen this brewed up on Reddit. You do something like a Swashbuckler, you Shadow Step it, you play a Swashbuckler again for cheap. You Shadow Step it, you play a Swashbuckler. Play a Brewmaster, you play Swashbuckler. You don't even run out of cards that fast because the Swashbuckler replaces itself with cards. Or you do it with this type of card, a Mimic Pod, a new kind of rogue card draw. It seems to be much more mana efficient than the Thistle Tea. Thistle Tea costs 6 mana, I believe, right?
Yep.
And it was kind of compared to Nourish. Nourish is a card that's played a lot. 5 mana, draw 3 for Druid. Thistle Tea cost 6 mana, and it drew 3. It drew 1 and then copied 2. So Mimic Pod, it mimics the value of card draw a lot closer. Arcane Intellect is like the standard for drawing 2, which costs 3. Rogue gets to now draw 2 for 3. Now, is this better or worse than draw 2 for 3? I think that's debatable. For one, if you want to draw cards, usually drawing multiple cards, different cards, is better, since you have a higher chance of finding what you're looking for. You have it's kind of the same reason why you want to include a variety of cards in your deck, because sometimes you want this card to answer certain cards, sometimes you want this card. If you're drawing 2 of the same cards, that's a 50% less chance to find what you're looking for.
Absolutely, yeah.
But on the flip side, say you draw a really good card, and most of the cards in your deck are supposed to be good if you're including them in your deck. This isn't like a random card. It's a copy of a card you've included in your deck. That means the card's pretty good. Furthermore, it brings it out from the ether, so it's not from your deck. If you're going for a fatigue game, if you're going for the long game, you just pull it out. Furthermore, it's a copy of card which can help for completing the quest if you happen to draw a low-cost one.
One of the things I love about this card is there's some cards that you can draw, and it just sort of changes the tone of the game. It changes how you're going to play, because you get 2 of a very, very significant card. You're like, oh, because I got this card this time, how am I going to play this match differently? And I thought that was really interesting to do.
Yeah, I think this is a good way of introducing like a light amount of card draw. I know that kind of philosophy of card draw in terms of a design perspective has been don't draw your deck every game. It gets a little bit samey, or don't draw that many cards. That's part of what keeps games different each game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this one especially is a good way of introducing cards which draw cards while always having a different outcome because you get like another card. It's a way of getting 3 of a card. Seems good. And all the ones so far shown all seem to have like applications. Even Lost in the Jungle, those 2 poor Silverhand recruits have gotten lost in Ungoro. I think this card would have gotten played way back when as well. Between Muster for Battle, Lost in the Jungle, and Quartermaster, it would have been a beast. Maybe you'll see it in Wild. But this is the card that might make Sunkeeper Tarim great. You play the 1 mana Lost in the Jungle, you play the Sunkeeper Tarim. It reminds me a lot of Muster for Battle and the Quartermaster. So Lost in the Jungle, Sunkeeper Tarim is 7 mana. Get the Sunkeeper Tarim, which is a 3/7. You get the Lost in the Jungle, 2 3/3s. That's a 7 mana 9/13 worth of stats. And you set all of your opponent's minions down to 3/3s. Seems like a good combo. In addition, Lost in Jungle can just be played on turn 1. 2/1/1s. Pretty good.
Yeah, flexible, powerful. I like it.
Hydrologist. So 2 mana 2/2 draw card is clearly really good. I think the card to compare this with is Dark Peddler. Dark Peddler, a Warlock card, 2 mana 2/2, discover a 1-cost card. This is surprisingly similar in that it discovers a 1-cost card because Paladin cards, Paladin secrets are always 1-cost secrets. Now the question is, are the Paladin secrets good enough to match these 1-cost cards?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think even if they're a little bit worse than the 1-cost Warlock cards, it's still a good card because it's just so much value. And I don't know if they're worse or better. I think it sort of depends how well you use the secrets and it's sort of situational. I've had a lot of success with Getaway Kodos because you hold them. You don't play the Getaway Kodo right away. You can if you want get another Hydrologist and get another Getaway Kodo and just play Infinite Hydrologist that way. But you can also save it for like your Tyrion turn or something like that. So it's pretty good. And you can time when you use the secrets carefully.
Right, and I think Getaway Kodo is going to be a very popular choice when you pick with Hydrologist. Redemption also pretty good. You can always plan out when. You could never really put in Redemption or Getaway Kodo into a deck because it required a very fringe scenario to happen in order to play it, but now that you get a 2 mana 2/2 with it, seems a lot better. There's 6 secrets out there right now to discover, I believe. That sounds about right, which means you have about a 50-50 chance of discovering Getaway Kodo. Redemption, too. They have similar things. Worth mentioning is if you get Hydrologist in a Mage, you would discover a Mage secret. And if you get it in Hunter, you discover a Hunter secret. And for some reason, if you somehow get a Hydrologist in a neutral, or I mean, in any other class other than Mage and Hunter, you discover a Paladin secret. Vilespine Slayer. Wow, that card is Assassinate with a 3/4.
Yeah, Vilespine Slayer, he's really good.
It kind of introduces a new type of rogue, control rogue. Are we getting the tools for this type of deck? We'll have to wait and see for other ones, but this is clearly costed extremely efficiently. Plants are the rogue-specific theme in terms of between dinosaurs and elementals and plants. Rogues get all the plants, and the plants are like kind of poisonous, and they destroy minions, and they're spooky, and they eat you.
They are spooky, and they do eat you. I love the plant theme that rogues have. One of the things we've talked about with rogues is they have more class identity than most of the other classes. They don't have good AoE. They don't have good healing or taunt. And that made them very unique. And I really like that. And instead of making them powerful by giving them AoE or heal or taunt, we said, let's just make them super good at what they do, right? Combo is something they do. Destroy minions, single minions is something they do. Let's make them by far the best at that. And this is a great example of that.
That's a really good insight into that. I've always there's like a common meme which says like rogue, no heal, no taunt, no AoE, have some draw, but other than Gazan and Sprint, not that much. I've always thought, okay, well, it doesn't really matter if you don't have taunt or heal if you just kill your opponent's minions really quickly with efficient cards. So that's the direction of rogue. Seems good. Card is obviously ridiculously efficient. We're just going to have to see about all the other cards, see if we can piece a deck together that runs an efficient, lean, mean combo machine, maybe mid-range, maybe control. But really big value card. Mirage Collar. It's a priest card. It summons 3/4 worth of stats for 3, and even better, you can copy a Death Rattle and like get way more than 3/4 for stats. Good examples of which are the Crystalline 1/1 Geode from Priest. You play that on turn 1. Maybe the opponent's too lazy to kill it. You Mirage Collar it. It's basically 3 mana, 3/4, draw a card. Wow.
That sounds great.
And not only that, that's not all. It also counts for the quest, since the quest is summon Death Rattle minions.
That also sounds great. Yeah, the other thing that this guy does is if you copy, say, a Cairn with it, you get a 1/1 Cairn, and later you play N'Zoth, you get the full-size 4/5 Cairn because of that 1/1 token.
Wow, that's fat value right there.
That is tons of value. And it doesn't just work with Death Rattles. I think mostly it'll be used on Death Rattles, but theoretically, if you had a Ragnaros and it survived a turn, have 2.
Yeah. Wild, though, since your poor Ragnaros is getting rotated into Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And one other use for it that I saw some people, we play tested a little bit, is if you played, say, a 4/5 can't attack on turn 2, turn 3 you can copy it, and then you can silence it.
Purify? What? Whoa!
No, silence. You don't have enough mana for Purify.
Oh, silence.
It. Yeah,
oh.
I'm not talking about Purify. You guys
What? What?
Or you could Purify it.
Yeah,
you could Purify
Of course.
That's a good idea.
Who's going to kill a 2 mana,
That's a
1/1
good
can't
idea.
attack? Or a 1 mana, 1/1 can't attack.
And
Whatever.
it becomes a 4/5 and it can attack. It becomes big and it's silenced.
Wow.
Isn't that great? The value.
Oh my gosh, Purify is happening. But more realistically, probably for Death Rattles.
Yeah.
Curious Glimmerroot. That is a really curious card. I really like the design on this one. It's 3 mana, 3/3. Basically draw a card for anyone in the know. So it has this kind of Drachnid operative type effect. I mean, not really. You look at your opponent's deck, but just 1 card in it, and then you get 2 dummy cards with it, and you have to guess which one started in the opponent's deck. And I think it's class cards that it gets shown.
Right. If the guy had any class cards in his deck at all, which basically everybody does, it just shows you 3 class cards, 1 class card from his deck, and then 2 class cards that are specifically not in his deck or were not in his deck at the start of the game.
Your opponent usually runs the good class cards in the deck once the meta's figured out and all that. So you get to play the, is it Healing Touch? Is it Swipe? Or is it Savagery that they put in your deck?
I could get that one right.
Thinking.
Even I could get that one.
So if that happens, you're getting a 3 mana, 3/3 draw Swipe. That's great. Kind of is almost comparable to Azure Drake, which is getting rotated out. 5 mana, 4/4. So you're paying 2 fewer mana for 1/1 less of stats. And it's not quite as good as draw a card because you're drawing a card from the opponent's deck, which doesn't necessarily synergize with your plan. However, your opponent generally puts good cards in their deck.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in playtesting that a lot of people did when they played this is there's 3 cards in front of them, and instead of thinking which one is their opponent's deck, they immediately go into Discover mode. Oh, this is a Discover card. Which one do I want? And they're like, oh, I really need Healing Touch right now. And they click Healing Touch. I guarantee you will see dozens of videos of that.
Yeah, I mean...
So your brain just knows what Discover means. It means
Exactly.
take the one you want.
We need fewer deck slots, by the way. It kind of goes along the lines of forgetting to attack with patches. Nowadays, most people remember to attack with patches, but first few days, that thing was just sitting there as a 1/1. It was still too good.
Very
but,
similar.
Yep. Unite the Murlocs. New kind of direction to take the Shaman in. We've taken the Shaman in about 5 different directions so far, but here's another one. Now you can complete a quest to summon 10 Murlocs, get Megafin. And it's summon 10 Murlocs, not play 10 Murlocs, which means calling the finisher counts as 4 of them. Now, how good is Megafin? It's 5 mana, 8/8, which draws 10 cards, so that's pretty good.
Wow.
Well, not draw 10, but fills your hand with random Murlocs. So, ways that you can cheat out this summon Murloc things. Well, calling the finishers for 4. You've got the good old reliable Finja, the water package, which has been making it into a lot of decks right now. Finja, Bluegill, Warrior. You've got the Murloc War Leader. So those are like 5 Murlocs that are already in there. You play your Finja, you attack with it, you summon 2, that's 3 done. Play a Call from the Finishers, that's 4 done. You've got 7. All you have to do is maybe get one of those Tide Callers, the 2-1 that summons another 1-1 Murloc.
Right.
And then you've got 9, and you just have to summon another Murloc. So you don't even have to build a Murloc deck. This quest also lets you go in a few different directions. And then you get Megafin. Especially perhaps good for a Murloc deck, though, because Megafin is exactly the type of card you need in a Murloc deck. Gets you to fill up your hand. You can actually get in the situation of drawing 10 cards with Megafin, perhaps pretty consistently if you're playing a Murloc deck. Spooky.
Yeah, I think Megafin's going to be great. You definitely want to refill your hand. You also want some big threats. Murlocs often run out of gas, and this is you both refill by having a 5-mana 8/8 and then a bunch of more Murlocs. And there's some Murlocs in the set, too, that I think will be good with this guy.
Yep, we're going to be covering a few of those in the neutrals. Kalimos, Primal Lord. One of the very cool designs. So this is another way that elementals are getting pushed. Elementals, for those that want a reminder on how elementals work, they require a turn of setup. If you played an elemental last turn, cast an elemental invocation. So before you play a Kalimos, be that on turn 8, 9, 10, whenever, you're going to need to play a card that's an elemental beforehand.
Yeah, I think that the elemental mechanic is pretty good. A lot of people just think, oh, I'll just play and I'll play my hand on curve and it'll be fine. But the really good players will play better than that. They'll realize, okay, I need to set up Kalimos on 8. So instead of doing the obvious Fire Elemental on 6, I'll wait, have a slightly worse turn 6, and then Fire Elemental on 7 so that Kalimos is set up on 8.
Right, even with cards such as Firefly. You might play this guy on turn 1 and then hold that 1-2 elemental for quite a while, and then you play that thing on turn 7, perhaps with your Fire Elemental, or perhaps with just a good 6-drop, who knows, Cairn, something like that, and then you get to play the Kalimos. So 8 mana, 7/7. That battle cry better be really good. What is it? We've got 4 options for you, and it's you get to choose. First is Invocation of Earth, which basically turns this into an Onyxia. 7/7, and then you get a bunch of elementals. Second option is Restore 12 to your hero. That's if you're facing the beatdown, you need some heals. Great choice. Third choice, deal 3 damage to all enemy minions. Basically turns your guy into kind of the closest comparison is Abyssal Enforcer, which is clearly a very good card, except this one is all enemy minions. It's kind of like a Flame Strike, which costs 1 more and gives you a 7/7. And then the final option is deal 6 to the face. Probably not going to be seen that often, I predict, but sometimes you just need 6 damage.
It'll probably be because you're winning with it.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I use the sort of Flame Strike one a lot when I was playtesting this. But occasionally you need to heal, depending if you're the aggressor or like the guy who's being on the defensive.
Yeah, and then there's even the just generally play it for goodness, the Onyxia effect.
Yep.
All elementals. Very flexible card. The cost for its flexibility is you have to play elementals, but it's starting to seem more and more like the elementals are actually decent cards by themselves.
Yeah, the fact that he summoned 6/1/1 elementals affected some of our other designs. It made it so that we cared about playing elementals rather than summoning elementals, because if you counted him filling 7 elementals in 1 turn, then cards that cared about how many elementals you played would summoned would be +7. So.
Yep, that's plus 35 health on that 9 mana
yes.
elemental legendary,
which I think we'll get to in neutral.
Yeah, we've already covered that way before, unfortunately.
Well, irrelevant in this case.
Yep. So don't try to combo it that way. All right, Corrupting Mist. If you thought Corruption was good, which actually didn't start happening until only kind of later into the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan meta, people started putting in Corruption into their decks to be defensive against cards. And every deck that was not accurate, almost every deck, almost every control deck, almost every deck with Reno in it, ran Doomsayer, which the main purpose of Doomsayer was to destroy all enemy minions after taking damage. And sometimes you got a consolation prize of you heal for 7 when they decide to kill your Doomsayer. But, you know, if they could kill you, they would always just kill you instead of killing the Doomsayer. So it's not like you could always play the Doomsayer and just heal 7. Corrupting Mist is pretty much the same way. except it's guaranteed going off unless they silence or something like that. Wow, that sure seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's like playing Corruption. It's obviously a lot better Corruption if there's only enemy minions, but if there's friendly minions, then it's a lot worse because you actually are corrupting your own minions.
Oh,
too.
corrupt every minion. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's meant for a control deck then, obviously.
Yeah,
but
obviously you have to
pretty
choose
good.
carefully when you play it because of that.
Yeah, try playing it when you have no minions and when your opponent has minions.
Exactly.
Smart.
So if you wanted to play this and play a minion, normally they would just trade into it, so it's normally a bad idea. I don't think any Warlocks play stealth minions, but theoretically, if there was a good stealth minion, you could play that after playing this. Just an idea. We never had any in playtesting though.
All right. I'd say that one would see play in Reno Lock as is right now. Reno Lock is probably, in my opinion, not going to see play after the rotation of Reno and Bran, but perhaps a control Warlock version is going to come up. You'll probably run Corrupting Mist in it. Molten Blade. It's Shifter Xeris for Warrior and for weapons. The good news is weapons on a whole are typically far better than a random minion.
Yeah, Molten Blade is interesting because it's not like Discover. It doesn't just give you warrior weapons. It actually gives you weapons of every class. Right, so you can get a True Silver. You can get some crazy, shaman weapons. There's some really excellent ones out there.
Yeah, and also furthermore, the fact that you can reach out and get the minion or the weapons from other classes, you can get that Doom Hammer and then you can upgrade it. And upgraded Doom Hammers are really disgusting.
That sounds really good, yeah.
I'm sure that's happened.
It has happened. Yeah. This weapon, when I first saw it, it's like, oh, it's going to be like Shifter Xeris, not too strong. When I playtested it, it was like, oh, it's a little bit better. After you put your 2 Fiery War Axes in, you can play one of these, and it's pretty good.
I actually see a lot of potential in it in Control Warriors now. Disclaimer, I saw a lot of potential in Shifter Xeris as well. I thought it would be a one of in Reno decks for certain. And then I thought, in Control decks, yeah, sure, you can wait around long enough. But it just turns out there's a lot of bad minions in the game. However, for weapons, there's fewer bad weapons. Generally, they all do the same thing. You pay some amount of mana, you get to do it. And sometimes when you're getting weapons off of, say, Malkarok, the weapons have battle cry effects or they have other stuff. With Molten Blade, you can actually play them. You can play your Perdition's Blade and have the battle cry go off, the combo effect go off.
Right. Also, if it turns into some weapon that you don't like, a really weak weapon or a small weapon, you want an expensive weapon, you just wait. You don't play it right away. You wait till it's a great weapon.
Yeah. Control Warriors have the luxury of waiting all the time, so don't let Shifter Xeris tarnish your views on this card. I dream of a world of Molten Blade. Glacial Shard. It's the card we kind of alluded to earlier with that Hunter Quest card. Very interesting stat line, very interesting effect for 1 mana. 1 mana, 2/1. Cool stuff, but freeze an enemy. We've generally seen freeze an enemy being costed at 0 mana from the Mage's Freezing Potion.
Right.
Now you're bundling it together with a 1 mana, 2/1. Frost Elemental did see a tiny bit of play in Reno Luck. 6 mana, 5/5. So how much was freeze valued at there? It was valued at about 1.5 mana. So if you consider freeze an enemy to be worth 1 mana, then that means this is kind of like a 0 mana 2/1 bundled with a freeze effect, and the value is kind of there. It's also got the elemental tag. It's a tricky card because you obviously don't want to be playing this card on turn 1, even though it costs 1. And when do you want to be playing a card just to freeze an enemy? Questionable. It's got a lot of interesting utility to it, though.
Yeah, it's another one that's good with Corruption and Corrupting Mists. You can cast this Corrupting Mist first, and then you play this to freeze their guy, and obviously they don't get their one last attack in before they die. But you'd have to have it in your deck to start with, and it's sort of borderline cards, so you have to decide whether that's a good idea or not.
Unfortunately, the Warlock synergy of the Elementals probably isn't there, since the Warlocks are not a class really known for their Elementals. But feel free to make an Elemental deck that isn't Mage or Shaman. Maybe one exists.
Yeah, there's a bunch of neutral Elemental Matters cards. The most likely situation for this card is probably like a Shaman mid-range Elemental deck. Some people will try it out in that and find out if it's good or not.
Welcome to the team of Anti-Pirates. It's Gluttonous Ooze. 3 mana, 3/3. Strike opponent's weapon, gain armor equal to its attack. It's the card that Pirate Warriors hate to see when they have a 7/1 Arcanite Reaper on the board.
I love it. Sounds like when you're looking for something to make sure you don't get hit in the face by upgraded Arcanite Reaper, he's your man.
The only question is, does this outclass Acidic Swamp Ooze? Acidic Swamp Ooze, 2 mana, 3/2. Gluttonous Ooze, 3 mana, 3/3. It's even further for furthering your desire against, but I mean, it's really specific. Usually, you care more about killing your opponent's weapons in a control matchup because the weapons are killing your minions. This Ooze is designed specifically for killing your opponent's weapon if they've been hitting your face. If they plan to hit your face with the weapons. Because in a control versus control matchup, it's not usually about the health. It's more about it's more about killing your opponent's weapon so it doesn't take out your guys. So this Ooze is a little bit worse than the Acidic Swamp Ooze against control, but way better if the weapons have been hitting your face, since it has the dual purpose of killing your opponent's weapon and healing you for that much. That's actually, if you kill a 7 attack weapon, it's like a gain of 14 health.
Wow,
net gain.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, and you get a 3 mana 3/3.
That sounds great. Yeah, it's very much for people who want to specifically answer weapon decks. If you're not playing against a weapon deck or don't care about the life total, then I think the other Ooze is better. You know, like you said, and against if you actually do hit, then this one is certainly better.
I like that there's more anti-aggro cards, so that those who want to have the tools available to defeat these fiendish decks which try to kill you really fast, you can target them specifically, and then between this Ooze and the Crab and the Taunt, which has more attack on your turn, it seems like we're getting those tools required to shut down aggressive decks, while not being too big of a hindrance against control decks. Like, yeah, it's 3 mana 3/3. We have cards like that which are still played, such as Mind Control Tech. You usually don't pull off Mind Control Tech against aggressive against control decks. You have the Second Hand Bruiser. You usually don't like a 5 mana 4/5 taunt against control decks, but you play them because they're not that bad against control decks, and they're really good against aggro decks. So this card's probably going to make it in if Pirate Warrior continues to be a big thing. We'll see. Great card to see as an option, though. Primalfin Lookout. It's a Murloc that discovers another Murloc. Really good for finishing the Shaman Murloc quest, and seems like just generally good value. 3 mana, 3/2, draw a card. Discovering a Murloc could be argued to be just about as good, slightly worse than drawing a card.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes worse than drawing a card. Maybe if you have a lot of Murloc synergy, then it can be better, like you really need a War Leader or something, or you just want a whole bunch of Primalfin Lookouts to help you complete your quest. You can just go lookout to lookout to lookout.
Oh, wow, Lookout.
The dream.
Infinite Lookouts.
I would say lookout.
Let's see. So, comparing this card with other cards that draw a card, you've got Loot Hoarder, 2 mana, 2/1, draw a card, delayed. You've got Gnomish Inventor, 4 mana, 2/4, draw a card. This one just adds a mana and draws a card. Adding a mana and drawing a card is generally good value. Azure Drake adds a mana onto Ogre Magi, a terrible card, and then becomes an insane card. So, shouldn't Primalfin Lookout be a great card?
Now the restriction is it only triggers if you control the Murlocs. You can't just play this in any deck. You got to play it in a deck that's really dedicated to Murlocs.
Kind of going back into the Murloc theme of Murlocs really like having Murlocs already on the board, but you can really keep the Murlocs down by just removing them constantly, or all at once, because they usually swarm the board with Murlocs.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this gets played. There's a lot of cards at 3 in Shaman and in Murlocs, so it'll be tough. People have to make hard decisions on how to build that deck.
Tol'vir Stoneshaper. It's another Elemental Matters card. People have been saying Rip Taw's Dingo to seeing this card. It's a card that not only is the 4 mana 3/5 stat line of Sen'jin Shieldmaster, but it also, on top of the taunt, has Divine Shield. And Divine Shield is actually pretty good ability, worth debatably an extra mana on a card, which means you're lumping in quite a lot of good stat value into it. The only restriction is you have to have played an Elemental last turn. So how good this card is going to be dependent on the 3 mana elementals that we're going to see, or perhaps just even how good cheap elementals are. We've seen that 1 mana 1/2 elemental that you can play alongside, say, a 2-drop on 3 perhaps, and then a 4 mana Stoneshaper. Seems great.
Yeah, this guy's interesting because he himself is not an elemental, so you have to sort of plan out what you're going to be doing on 5 and 6, and how this turn 4, or whenever you play him, how that will impact all your future turns, because you want to make sure you got your elemental synergy set up again before you play another elemental matters guy.
Furthermore, on the topic of elemental matters, this card turns out to be a pretty bad top deck because, and generally elemental matter cards and possibly elementals turn out to be pretty bad when top decked, since you might not have set it up, or you might have wanted to set things up, and that's why Taw's Dingo is not extinct.
Yes.
It doesn't always have Taunt, doesn't always have Divine Shield. Sometimes 4 mana 3/5, and sometimes that's okay. You can still play it like that.
Yeah, you'll have to decide when you do top deck it. Do you want to play it right away, or do you want to wait a turn and play like an elemental first and then play this later?
Yep. Whether or not this card's going to be seen, it's going to depend a lot on how good the rest of the elementals are. About other elemental matters cards, we'll have to wait and see on that one. And finally, the big bad Volcanosaur. It is, by the way, a card that everybody is going to get 2 golden versions of during the login rewards before Ungoro. Unfortunately, it's not a very good card, but at least you'll have 2 of them. You've got Adapt and Adapt. It's been clarified, by the way, that you can choose the same adaptation twice. So you could get +1 and +1 for a 7 mana 7/8. You could get +3 attack and +3 health for 7 mana 8/9. You could get stealth and +3 attack for a way better Ravenholt Assassin. Not that that card ever sees any play.
Yeah.
But it's cool that when you start adding up adapts, you start really being able to build your own card.
Yeah. On this guy, I like +3 health and taunt. So he's like an Ancient of War. He's a 5/9 taunt for 7. That's pretty good.
Wow. That's actually pretty good. What are the chances of getting exactly those 2?
It's about 30% for each one, so about 10%.
But then you can get it in either order as well, right?
That's true.
So that would be, somewhere between 10 and 20% will estimate. And besides, you can always get like Taunt and +1/+1. You can get Taunt and Divine Shield, so there's a lot of redundancies here.
Yep.
You have 2 chances to get Taunt in your 30%, and then your other 30%, so the chance of Taunt by itself is like 50-ish%.
Yeah.
Maybe the card isn't as bad as I thought. It's like Neutral Ancient of War if you're really optimistic. That's the 20 cards that have been revealed. Some really exciting ones. I don't think there are any that are that bad. I find this a little bit surprising. And it's not... I try not to pull my punches, especially since you're right next to me. Has there been some kind of conscious decision not to make cards like that far below the power curve?
Each card should have like a situation where like people like it, and sometimes that means a situation where it's powerful, but sometimes it just means it's a situation where like, oh, I really like this because it tells a cool story or has an important flavor in the set, like the Lost in the Jungle card. It was there. It was designed to tell a story, not necessarily to be powerful, but it's still pretty good. Like, it's very reasonable to play. I'm sure that people will find different people will hate different cards for different reasons, right? Some people could be super mad at this guy because, you know, maybe he doesn't look like an Ancient of War right away, or the chance of you getting an Ancient War is only 20%, or whatever it is. If you choose +3 attack and +3 health, he's 8/9, but he's also like kind of boring at that point. I mean, there's different reasons to dislike different cards and to like different cards. I think that we've shown off some pretty cool ones, but Ungoro has a lot of awesome ones. Ungoro's definitely the set that I'm most excited about. It's like if we made Old Gods, but we put 9 Old Gods in it. That's sort of how I feel about Ungoro.
Like, all the quests are pushing kind of dangerous limits, which is very exciting in the sense that we deck builders, we mad scientists, we like having kind of open-ended possibilities. All the quests are requiring you to build the decks in a specific way. However, at the same time, you have a lot of agency to how to build those decks. In the Priest Death Rattle one, which Death Rattles are you including? Are you even including copy cards?
Right.
And
what I love the most is when people combine different archetypes that we put out there. Like
aggro Shaman and Jade.
Right. Or aggro Shaman and Jade and Pirates and the Murloc package.
Oh.
And they're like, what? You guys just doing all these things? And putting those pieces together is, kind of creative deck building. In Rogue, it's like, oh, I want to play the Stealth package, the Murloc package, the Pirate package, and the Auctioneer package. And that's like 4 different build-arounds all going on at once. And how much to dedicate each one of those build-arounds is, what the deck builder gets to decide. And it's actually really fun.
Yeah, we actually kind of saw that at the World Championship, which was just played right here. A very special type of rogue came in a very high ranking. Both the Stealth package and the Murloc package and the Murloc Dragon Beast package from the Curator.
Did it also have Pirates?
No room for
Not
Pirates.
This one. Okay, no room.
But that's a really cool type of deck build. It was a rogue that didn't even bring sap because you can't fit sap into a deck with that many things. So a traditionally thought of like staple card got shut off to the side just because there's so many different things that work together.
Yeah, when I build priest decks, there's a lot of different tools there. You're thinking about dragons, you're thinking about Reno, you're thinking about Shadow Form, and you're thinking about like the new elemental cards because there's a few elementals in priest. You're thinking about, dinosaurs. You're thinking about the N'Zoth Death Rattle package. And you're like, how many of these can I combine and get into my deck, right? And it's a fun challenge to figure out.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for all your insight. That was really insightful into these newly revealed cards of Ungoro. And look forward to more reveals coming up soon.
Great. I'm glad you liked them.
Of course, now the lighting comes back. Wait, could you have turned that on the whole time? Oh, okay. Thank goodness.